Today, you pulled away, and now she can't stop thinking about you. When a woman senses she might lose something special, she will do anything to reclaim it. Initially, she told herself she didn't care. She thought she was in control, that she had the upper hand, but now things feel different. She anticipated you would pursue her, reach out as you always did, but instead you vanished. That's when uncertainty creeps in. She begins to scrutinize every little thing, questioning everything about your connection. That's when she realizes you weren't as invested as she believed. So what comes next? Will she return? Will she start pursuing you? Women tend to chase what they feel is slipping away. Your next move will be crucial. When you were consistently present, texting, calling, making plans, she never had to question your commitment. Many men overlook the significant impact of their absence. She never doubted her role in your life. She never experienced the chance to miss you, but once you pull away, everything changes. Initially, she hardly notices. She thinks you're just busy. You'll reach out later, as usual. So she continues her day without a second thought, but then hours turn into a full day, maybe even two. Suddenly something feels off. She checks her phone. No messages, no calls, no alerts from you. That's when the realization hits. That's when she feels the shift. At first, she reassures herself it's nothing. Maybe you're just out with friends. It's not a big deal. But as another day passes, she finds herself reaching for her phone, hoping for a message, yet still nothing. Now, she can't dismiss it any longer. The thought begins to surface. Why hasn't he reached out? Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? And the moment she starts to question you, the moment doubt creeps in, you've already gained the upper hand. Many men struggle with silence. They become anxious and overanalyze. What if she thinks I'm not interested? Perhaps she's waiting for my message. I should just send a quick text, right? Regardless of how self-sufficient she appears, how busy her life is, or how many other men are around her, she always notices when you distance yourself. However, she won't reveal it. She'll act nonchalant, sharing posts on social media, laughing, and appearing unfazed. She'll keep herself surrounded by friends, stay occupied, and even convince herself that she doesn't need you. Yet deep down, she's paying attention. She's waiting for you to reach out, to check in, to see how she's doing, to show that you still care. That's the typical behavior of most men. When they do reach out, the dynamic shifts. She realizes she still has a hold on them. But if you don't make contact and choose to stay silent, everything changes. She doesn't just notice your absence, she begins to feel it. She attempts to brush it off, to keep herself distracted. But the question remains, why hasn't he reached out? Did I do something wrong? Is he seeing someone else? Suddenly the woman who once appeared so self-assured is filled with uncertainty. The mind operates in a way that makes us truly appreciate what we fear losing. Humans have a natural desire for uncertainty. When something is consistently present, it becomes something we take for granted. However, once it's gone, everything changes. While you were pursuing her, she didn't have to consider you or question her feelings. She never experienced missing you. Now, in your absence, she's compelled to confront her thoughts. Initially, she dismisses it, convincing herself she's okay. But then a song plays, triggering memories of you. A familiar scent transports her back to your last encounter. A chat with a friend brings your name into the conversation. Unbeknownst to her, her feelings are rekindling, drawing her thoughts back to you. She can't quite understand it, but you occupy her mind constantly. Things begin to shift here. She won't reach out right away. Her pride holds her back. She doesn't want to appear vulnerable or admit that she misses you. Instead, she observes from a distance. She checks your social media, notices when you're active, and pays attention to your interactions. The more she observes, the more she spirals into overthinking. Who is he chatting with? Why does he seem so unaffected? Is he moving on without her? Though she remains silent, you become an obsession in her thoughts. She starts sharing subtle hints, perhaps a photo that reminds you of her, a song lyric that feels intimate, or a vague post that could easily be overlooked. But if you overlook it, that's when the anxiety kicks in. Many men stumble at this point. Just a few days into no contact, they falter. They think she's simply waiting for them to make the first move, so they send a casual message. "Hey, how have you been?" In doing so, they relinquish their advantage. Now she understands she still holds the power. However, when you remain silent and don't respond, the situation changes. Doubt begins to seep in. She starts to regret her decisions, questions if she misjudged you, and wonders if she made a wrong choice. That's when it dawns on her, you're different from other men. This realization prompts her to take action. She might like an old post, respond to your story, or come up with a random reason to text you. In one way or another, she will seek a reason to gauge your interest. Because now, the roles have reversed, and she's pursuing you. Initially, she dismisses it, believing you'll return as you always have. She comforts herself with the notion that she's in charge, and that distancing herself is the right choice. However, as time passes, something feels off. She anticipated you would reach out, that you would pursue her and make an effort. Instead, nothing. That's when the emotional turmoil begins. As days turn into weeks without any sign of you, her self-assurance begins to wane. Doubts start to surface. Did she go too far? Have you found someone new? Have you truly moved on? Confusion shifts to irritation. Why? Because for the first time she feels out of control. She's unaccustomed to uncertainty, to being the one left in limbo. She's losing someone who was once always there, and that's when the panic sets in. She won't confess that she misses you. Instead of reaching out directly, she begins to test your reactions. She posts ambiguous quotes or shares stories that seem directed at you. She casually texts, asking if you still have that jacket she left at your place. She coincidentally runs into you, pretending it's by chance. But none of this is random. She's trying to provoke a response, eager to see if you'll engage. Most men do respond. The moment she gives them a hint, they react quickly, over-explaining and assuming it means she wants to reconnect. In that moment, she gains the upper hand, knowing she still holds influence over them. However, if you choose to ignore her tests and don't respond as she anticipates, that's when the dynamic changes. A change occurs within her. The more you keep your distance, the more her thoughts amplify. She revisits old conversations, doubts her decisions, and begins to question if she erred. Then it dawns on her. This isn't a mere game. You're not just biding your time to return. You've genuinely stepped back. Initially, she thought you were putting her to the test, anticipating your return as before. But as time drags on, it becomes evident. This situation is unlike any other. That's when her view of you shifts. You're no longer the dependable guy who was always around, always predictable, always in need of her approval. Now, she perceives you as someone she is on the verge of losing. Most men never arrive at this stage because they fail to give a woman enough time to process her feelings. When they detect a sense of distance, they often panic, sending more texts, making more calls, and over-explaining their emotions in a frantic attempt to win her back. However, if you can resist that impulse and maintain your composure, a much more powerful shift occurs. She begins to worry that she might have lost something significant. Initially, it may just be an annoying thought. Maybe he's just being difficult. Then frustration sets in. Why isn't he responding? Eventually it evolves into a deeper emotion, fear. Wait, is he really finished with me? And fear is a more potent force than reason. Many men stumble at this point. When she reaches out, they often give in too quickly. They respond right away, express how much they missed her, and act as if nothing has changed. In doing so, they hand her the victory. She realizes she never truly lost you. However, If you remain distant and don't rush back at the first sign of her interest, the situation changes completely. She begins to put in more effort. She starts to prove her worth. She may even fear that she has lost you for good. Suddenly, she finds herself feeling uncertain, questioning everything, and recognizing that her desire for you is stronger than she ever imagined. Something shifts in her mind, something she doesn't immediately recognize. At first, thoughts of you were brief and easy to dismiss. She believed they would fade away. However, as time passes, you keep reappearing in her thoughts. She finds herself waking up and checking her phone, hoping for a message from you. Throughout her day, reminders of you pop up everywhere. Even when she's out with friends, laughing, there's an underlying sense that something is amiss. It's not a conscious thought, it's psychological. When a woman becomes accustomed to your presence, she mentally places you in a category of reliability, someone who is always there when needed. But when you completely withdraw, that entire mental structure crumbles. Now, she feels the emptiness, prompting her to re-evaluate everything. Was he really the one in control all along? Was he more powerful than I realized? Did I completely misinterpret this situation? As soon as a woman begins to doubt herself, her attachment deepens. You transform into a mystery, and mysteries are hard to resist. She finds herself in an unusual situation. Her pride won't let her acknowledge that she misses you, yet her feelings give her away. To cope, she goes to extremes. She attempts to persuade herself and those around her that you don't matter. Suddenly, she becomes very active on social media, sharing more selfies, going out frequently, and pretending to live her best life. She engages with other guys, even if she has no real interest. Whenever you're nearby, she ensures she appears completely unfazed. But this behavior isn't random. It's all a strategy for you to notice. She aims to provoke a response, hoping to push you into action. If you take the bait, if you reach out because you saw her with someone else, or if jealousy prompts you to break your silence, she feels victorious. It confirms she still has a hold on your feelings. However, if you remain indifferent and choose not to respond, that's when her situation begins to unravel. Every woman has a limit, no matter how hard she tries to resist it. Eventually, frustration evolves into a deep yearning. The reality is, women don't feel your absence when you're still around, pleading for their attention. They truly miss you when you vanish completely. If you've stood firm and genuinely distanced yourself from her life, she will eventually crack. For some, this realization comes in a matter of weeks. For others, it may take months. But ultimately, she will relent. She might reach out with a simple message like, "Hey, hope you're doing well," or perhaps an unintentional call. She may even appear at a place where she knows you'll be. None of these actions are coincidental. It's her final effort to see if she can bring you back on her own terms. How you respond next will shape everything. When she finally reaches out, how should you respond? The key is to remain detached. Don't completely ignore her or engage in immature games, but avoid appearing desperate. If she sends a text, take your time to reply. When she inquires about your well-being, keep your response short. If she attempts to engage in a deep conversation, maintain control over the pace. Most importantly, avoid slipping back into old habits. You set the tone and make her earn your attention. Let her demonstrate her worth to you. The dynamics have shifted. You're no longer seeking her validation. She's now seeking yours. That's when you know you've truly succeeded. You now see the effects of pulling away. So, what's the next step? To keep her interested, ensure you're navigating this situation wisely.